everyone. It's the Book Cougars, two middle-aged women on the hunt for a good read. I'm Emily.
And I'm Chris.
We're
And look at what we have here.
creepy, creepy cover.
Very creepy. This is the Penguin Classics Book of Ghost Stories. It's from Elizabeth Gaskell to Ambrose Bierce. It's selected by Michael Newton. And this is 19 ghost stories in pretty much American and British literature. I think more British literature, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
because
Well,
you
there's
know
a
what?
mix.
There's some
There's
good
Harriet
Americans in
Beecher
here.
Stowe. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
Mary Wilkins Freeman, who is really cool. She was very popular in her day, but not so much anymore.
Edith Wharton's in here. There's a really good introduction, and there's also a suggested reading, additional reading, which is really interesting as well.
And a very cool chronology of the ghost story.
Yes.
So we decided to use this book as more education for our year of reading ghost stories in 2025. And what we have in mind to do starting in February is each episode to have Buddy read a short story. And we're going to read them in the order that they're presented in this book. And so we'll be discussing one of these every episode, except for the episodes where we discuss the quarterly read along selection.
Right.
Yeah.
And to remind people, our first quarter read along is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. And we have a Zoom conversation on that going on February 16th at 7 p.m. Eastern. Send us an email if you'd like to join that conversation. And you can always read along and not join the conversation. And we'll talk about it on an episode as well after we have our Zoom conversation in February.
Yeah. In this
Yeah.
book, it's not like the official, quarterly book whatsoever, but we will post a reading schedule, at least for, what episode, what story will be discussed. We'll post that in February. So you know.
Yeah, and for those who followed last year, I did a year of reading short stories every Monday, and I'd been missing it. And Chris texted me when these books arrived, and she said, "Hey, should we read these every episode?" And I was like, "Sure." And that scratches the itch I'm missing of my short stories. So,
Totally.
yeah, so and we'll put a link to this official copy down below if you want to purchase it or get it from your library and join us. We'd love to have you reading along as well. Excited
Yeah,
about that.
and some of those stories I'm sure are available like for free online,
Yeah,
obviously, at your library. You could
right.
probably find like the Edith Wharton would be in a collection of her ghost stories. And so for those of you who are wondering where I am and why I look so ghostly, it's because I'm in the craft room at the Guilford Free Library. Thank you to them for letting me reserve the room for a couple hours today. It has overhead lighting, which always makes me look like death. But I just wanted to show you all this poster that's up here. Read ghostly good books. Love
Like they
that.
knew you were coming.
Knew I was coming. Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, this is all fall stuff and it is January, but that's okay.
No, when you
Yeah.
first dialed into the Zoom, I was like, "Are you in an outdated classroom? I don't know where you are."
Well, I
Yeah,
imagine the librarians will update it when the kids are back in school,
yeah,
because there's obviously nothing happening in here right now. So anyway, a new location is always fun.
yes. I love the brick in that room too. I love
Yeah,
exposed brick.
nice.
Well, I'm going all in on ghosts. So my Friday reads is this collection as well. It's called Night Side of the River: Ghost Stories by Jeanette Wilkerson. I'm sorry, Jeanette Winterson. And I talked about this on an episode on a Friday reads, I think when we had Sharon Short on. It had just come into Book Cougars headquarters. It's available now from Grove Press. This is an advanced reader copy, but it is available now. And she's someone who says that she's having some experiences with ghosts in her own life. So that's interesting. There are
Mhm.
13 stories in this collection, and they're separated into different categories. And the categories are devices, places, people, and visitations.
Mm.
And there's a really good introduction in the book, and I listened to that this morning on audio. It says that there's two narrators, and one of them is Jeanette, and I can't tell yet if she's the one that read the introduction or maybe she just reads an author's note at the end. So I'm not sure about that. But I listened to the intro. It was very interesting. I even laughed at one point. She said, Ghosts prefer stories that take place in the past because that's when they were alive, which I thought was very funny. She has a quote from Confucius at the very beginning of the introduction: respect ghosts and gods, but keep away from them, which seems like good advice all around.
Yes.
And I did listen to the first story, which is in the devices section. And what she means by devices is that as artificial intelligence begins to take over, perhaps there'll be a new understanding of what death is because people can communicate from the beyond via like apps and things like that. And
And
this,
projections.
yes, it's creepy. And this story was called Apparition. Apparition.
That's funny.
And it's about a man that dies. He visits his wife via an app on her phone. And it turns out he wasn't such a good man. And the only other thing I'm going to say about it is it does involve wild mushrooms, which I've
Oops.
mentioned creep me out in the past. So,
Yeah.
night
Something
side of
else
the
to stay
river.
away from, unless you really know what you're
Exactly.
doing. Yeah.
Excuse me. I always thought I had like it was, what's that word when it's not like it doesn't really make sense to be afraid of something? Like I feel that way about skunks too, and it's not like I come in contact with them very often. But, mushrooms are serious business. So this story just reaffirms that for me.
Hmm.
I'm sorry.
I was just saying, mushrooms are so important. I just watched some documentary that was talking about mushrooms and how important they are to trees and trees' root systems and how they nurture,
Yeah.
not
Yes.
nurture, well, nurture, they give nutrients to the tree and
Yeah.
things like that. Because we always have mushrooms in the spring
Yeah.
and summer
Yeah.
in our yard. So
Yeah.
thankfully, our dog leaves them alone.
Yeah. I've never thought about that. And what dogs must just know, just like birds and other animals know, don't eat them. It's we humans that get confused. So
Yes. Or think we know everything.
right.
Well, I just finished a really, really good book. It's not a ghostly book, but it's The Last Room on the Left by Lee Conan, I should say. And it has nothing to do with ghosts. I thought it was possibly going to because I've heard this, someone had asked her to write like a feminist take on The Shining by Stephen King. And The Shining is one of my favorite novels of all time. There's no supernatural elements in this novel. It is about a woman who's in her 30s and she has this really great gig. She's going to be a caretaker at a motel in the Catskills for a month, for the month of February. And she really needs it because she has this huge book deal. And she also has a movie deal based on this book that she has to finish writing. And she has really bad writer's block because she's a budding alcoholic on the verge of becoming like full blown out of control. She's already kind of exploded her life. Her husband has left her. She's not talking with her best friend. And so here she is at this motel. And there's a raging blizzard that starts. And what happens? She finds a dead body in the snowbank the next morning.
Oh no.
Yeah, so the story takes off from there. I thought it was I was worried it was going to be a little predictable at first, but then something happens and I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep giving this one a chance. So I'm glad I did because I was just at that point where I was going to let it go. But it has some twists and turns, some that you, or at least I, could anticipate, and others that I didn't see coming. Alcoholic, a lot of alcoholism. There's some sex, some S&M happens. if you need to be aware of that kind of stuff and steer clear of it, just so you're aware. I enjoyed it. It's my first novel by this author. It is not her first novel. She's written several, and it's coming out January 14th.
Oh, so next week.
Yeah, The Last Room on the Left. If you like, you know, it's not a super fast page turner, but it kept me going. It kept me up late at night, which is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I'm looking for my next like thrilling read. I'm kind of looking at everything. I don't know if I'm going to go with the full-blown ghost story, which is kind of what I'm thinking. Um, we'll see.
Yeah.
I'm also reading A New Home Who'll Follow by Caroline Kirkland. And this is one that's a memoir before memoirs were memoirs as we know them today. But it's about Kirkland's experience with her husband of heading into Michigan in the 1830s to basically create a town. You know, Michigan at that time was the frontier. So I think I might have read parts of this. I am not 100%. I could be mistaking it for another author, but I love her humor. Like she's really kind of like very straightforward about things. Like, you know, they're in their wagon and admiring flowers and they flip the wagon over by accident in a bog, you know?
Oopsie.
And yeah, and oh, I ruined my shoes, you know, kind of thing. But really, you know, it made me think too, some of the scenes already of some of those classic Western towns, you know, where the town needs more people to come so that it could truly be considered a town and settled. And land speculators are trying to sell more land. And there is a one of the scenes in here is with a guy who tries to screw them over, or to screw not them, but somebody else over by kind of stealing their deed to the land, which was gifted to them. You know, so there's some of that classic Western shenanigans happening already in the 1830s.
I
Yeah,
have mad appreciation for people who set out like that, and just didn't know where they were really going to end up and then had to build their homes and find their food. I mean, it's amazing.
yeah, yeah. So I'm doing a buddy read with this with Sigrid, and yeah, really looking forward to diving in with it more because The Last Room on the Left kind of took my attention a bit.
Yeah. Can I share a cookbook with you?
Please.
This is one that I've been wanting to get, and I just got it from the library a couple weeks ago. It's called Salty, Cheesy, Herby, Crispy, Snackable Bakes. 100 Easy Peasy Savory Recipes for 24/7 Deliciousness by Jessie Sheehan. She wrote a cookbook like this, but with sweets. And I was
Hmm.
really excited to see this because I have a hard time, like if someone asked me to bring an appetizer to, somewhere, I'm always like, oh, hummus and chips or a block of cheese and some crackers. I'm not very creative in that department. And so I wanted to see what she does here. And she's also really fun to follow on Instagram. I'll put her handle down below. She does a lot of fun tips, just tricks of the trade that you wouldn't know about. But over the holidays, I did the recipe she has in here for baked brie in parchment paper. I mean, not parchment paper, puff pastry, very different things. I mean, anything you put in puff pastry tastes good, but it
Yeah.
also looked so beautiful. I'll send you a
Hmm.
picture, Chris, of mine. Maybe you can just drop it in here. It took me 5 minutes to make this, and it
Wow.
wowed everybody and tasted really good.
Nice.
So it's a lot of really, truly easy peasy recipes for snacking and or for kind of like party table type foods. So highly recommend it. And like I said, I got it out of the local library, which is the way that I love to get cookbooks and read
Yeah.
through them. And I really sat down and read every page when I brought it
Hmm.
home, which I don't often do, and really enjoyed her head notes. Her head notes are short as well, just like this.
Good. That's
Yeah,
nice. That's so, yeah.
yeah.
Very good. Yum. All right, everybody. Well, we as always want to know what you're reading. If you want to drop some of what you're reading in the comments, we'd love to hear about it. We'd also appreciate it if you'd follow us if you're not already. and like the video. We're trying to, kind of do a little bit of a beginning of the year push to find new people and let new people find us as well.
Yes, indeed. And be sure to tell a friend too. We'd love that as well. All right,
All right.
everybody.
Happy reading.
Happy reading.